It's like they're altering their mind on purpose. They're aware that they're going to be photographed, and they stop it from taking place. Yeah, there's a case we were talking about Warminster. There's a case from down there where the gentleman and several others saw a silver-shaped disc crossing the sky. There were other people that could see it. You could see in the distance. There were other people pointing up at it and things like that. You know, everybody's looking at this thing. They get the camera. They take photographs and everything. On the photographs, it's not there. So they can see the people in the distance pointing up at the sky. You know, how on earth does that technology work? You know, so you know they can see it with the naked eye, but when they take a photograph, it's not on the photograph. So so that'll account for some of them, right? Now, a lot of the time when people are undergoing an experience with a UFO, whether it's close or distant, they'll be awestruck by what they're seeing. They'll be totally transfixed. And they won't think, I'm going to get a photograph of it. That's not at the top of their list. You know, what's at the top of their list is, wow, this is amazing. I've got to take this in.
Exactly.
They're not like thinking, I must get the evidence. I better make sure I get the evidence so that the UFO guys, you know, will have the evidence they need for the reality of the subject. It doesn't work like that.
It's not a rock concert, is it? No. This is something that's totally different.
So a lot of the time they'll have a camera on, but they won't think about using it at the time. That's actually happened to one of my friends who was a witness to a black spherical UFO a number of years ago, just about 10 minutes down the road, and I very nearly saw the thing myself. I can go through that with you if you wish. In a minute, we're talking about and video evidence. You know, again, we contacted in the case I described, the Drogovic case. I said she saw it outside. She didn't think about getting a camera. She was totally okay with it. It was like it was an everyday thing. She just totally dismissed it, and just carried on what she was doing.
That's it. It's part
of
that.
Again, you see the signs, with cases again and again. That case of the landing I described, the Eddington flying saucer thing, where they blanked out their memories completely. You know, these beings have ways around this. You know. And if they've got intelligence, which I believe they have, due to the fact that the technology they appear to be flying around seems to be way in advance of what we've currently got, then you can only assume that they would have technology that would enable them to remain covert. You know?
I agree. I agree.
There are other cases on record where good photographs and video footage have been taken and it's been confiscated by unknown agencies. Sometimes those individuals who confiscated that evidence say they're from the MOD or the CIA in America or whatever. Other times not, they just won't reveal where they're from, which is, you good old classic Men in Black, which again is a real thing, people think, Will Smith film and all that. Film.
It's again films, isn't it?
I mean that was a comedy based on the Men in Black, but the Men in Black are a very real thing. They don't happen all the time. I've dealt with a lot of contact cases. I'd say less than 10% of the cases they've talked about Men in Black, but certainly some of them they appear to be monitored by these individuals. I've dealt with some cases where they believe they've had their phone tapped, I've heard other voices over the phone and all sorts. And they usually present themselves as kind of just gentlemen in suits, often wearing shades. Not always in black, mind. There was a case. There was a case where somebody saw some men in brown. He was in a brown suit, but again, it was kind of very smartly dressed. And I believe it's a very real thing. Sometimes those individuals that they see seem to express odd aspects that lead them to believe that they might not be human. That they're actually aliens, and basically taking on the form of these figures. In other cases, it appears to be definitely kind of just straight up agents from somewhere, and they'll ask them questions. Now, a lot of people think, it's the good old classic, it's the planet Venus, you must not tell anybody. Right, that doesn't often happen. What's a lot more commonly reported is them trying to gain information about their experiences. It's almost like they're trying to find out more about the ETs and about contact from talking with the people that they're aware have had these experiences. There's a lot of cases on record where people have seen, after having a contact experience, within days they'll see unmarked helicopters and stuff flying close proximity to their house. Monitoring them perhaps. You know? And again, that's where kind of paranoia sinks in. Might just be could just be a normal police helicopter, but they interpret it as that. Yeah. It's a very real aspect of contact. Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if my group was being monitored. Yeah. It's widely known that they will actively monitor what's going on television and that sort of thing. People what they're talking about and when. Now a lot of the time they don't seem to mind. I've never had much of an inkling that they care about all the cases I've released. It's usually the cases where they're more concerned is where there's signs of that the military have been involved and that they've actively covered something up from the public that we don't like that. And some researchers have got involved in cases where where they've started to have people ring them up and threaten them and this sort of thing. The Men in Black and or visits by these agents from unknown organisations, they really kind of point towards there being an ongoing cover-up of this subject. Some people would kind of dismiss that and sort of say, "Oh, there's no cover-up going on," and all that. It's mumbo jumbo, But the facts speak for themselves that there are a number of big UFO cases on record. A lot of the time, the ones involving the military, where they've got radar recordings and things like that, where people have turned up and confiscated all the evidence, This has happened time and time again, and if you go back, if you did it back to back, you'd probably find hundreds of cases where that's happened. Now they've got all that evidence somewhere, and they're withholding it from the public, are they not? Because it's not widely available. Therefore, it's a cover-up. And logic will tell you that that's a cover-up. I don't care how big or how small a cover-up it is. They've got evidence, and they've taken away evidence that points towards it being a real thing. Because that's the crux. Stuff like that, stuff like radar recordings, where the radar's picked up an actual physical object on radar. Again, you could say that it was a faulty radar, except for the cases where they've checked multiple radar stations and it's occurred on all the radars. Which have happened again. The biggest case on record will, I think, tell anybody who looks at the subject openly, and logically, that it's real. Absolutely. And there's hundreds and hundreds of cases where people see objects at a distance, lights in the sky, that perform incredible things. And you can dismiss them all you like. I mean, an object suddenly zipping up at thousands of miles an hour. Even that is massively impressive, even if it's just distant. But there's also many, many cases on record of close, obviously structured craft performing incredible manoeuvres, altering the minds of people around them, intercepted by military, sometimes shot at by military, recorded on radar. If people want to go on and pretend that hasn't happened and go on with their daily lives because it doesn't impact their own particular life or whatever, and pretend that it's not real, then that's all well and good.
That's their choice, isn't it?
It's their choice.
That's it.
I think that
X Factors,
I think that anybody who looks at it with a logical open mind and properly looks at the evidence of these big cases cannot fail to be impressed.
Exactly.
And some of the statements that have gone over the years, some of the testimonies that have come out, presidents have gone on record after their term, I will say. After not while they're in power, like 5 Simon 2 we were talking about earlier on with the Phoenix Lights, like that. So once they've left their office or whatever, then they say, oh yeah, it's very much real, and we're fully aware of it. First of all, why would they say that? What need do they have for saying that? It's disclosure. It's them trying to get out the fact that this is going on and it is known about. And I mean, disclosure's a real big deal for a lot of people in the UFO subject. When I started going to conferences back at 16 or whatever, they were talking about disclosures just coming next year, definitely disclosure. And here we are, 20 so years on, and it's still 25 years on, and there's still no disclosure. Is there?
Think it'll ever come? Do you think we'll ever get that?
I think if it comes, it will be from them, not from the government. Not from, I shouldn't say the government, because a lot of the government probably don't have a clue as to the reality of this subject. Exactly. They're just as much in the dark as everybody else. The beings themselves could decide to present themselves to the planet and say, we're here, there we go. But there's no sign of that happening. From the contactees and things I've spoke with, they've got no sign that this is ever drawing to an end. I believe that this has been going on a long time. I believe they've been here for hundreds, possibly thousands of years. You've got a lot of historical paintings and things that seem to show UFO type objects. You've got even ancient cave paintings thousands of years ago. that show what. There's even some of them appear to show abductions and things taking place. Absolutely incredible. You know, when you look at what you know about the subject and you go and see these, you can see it in the paintings. You know, and
it's plain as day, isn't it?
You know, and yes, you could interpret it as that or something different. And there's certainly been some ones where people have interpreted some of the hieroglyphics in Egypt and said, "Oh, it's a UFO," and then later on somebody will be like, "Oh no, it's an urn or whatever with flowers and whatever," and that's fine. You know, misidentifications again. You know, but it's not all misidentifications. At the end of the day, it's not. A thing is either real or it's not real, and I think to say that that we're not being visited would require a massive amount of evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I say, just the evidence we've looked at points that this is real. You know, and there's so much more yet. You know, you had to look at so much more yet. So
it's absolutely huge. The whole subject is like this big puzzle with all these interlocking parts here. And there's just links between all aspects of things, and not just with UFOs either. Ghosts and things, the spirit world. The majority of contactees I've spoke with who've had abduction experiences have also experienced paranormal activity in their homes and things. Glowing orbs of light, really, really commonly reported. That kind of drift, just seem to drift across the room and that sort of thing. Seeing kind of shadowy kind of apparitions in their home, commonly referred to as sort of shadow people. Objects moving, stuff like stuff you'd usually attribute to ghosts. Now the question is it ghosts, and has their contact somehow unlocked other aspects of their brain that allow them to either draw in these things or maybe see these things, and they wouldn't usually see them, but because they've been abducted they can now see them. I don't know, that would speculation, isn't it? All I can say is that the facts of the cases that I've dealt with and read about over the years, and it's a very, very common thing. So there's a direct link there between contact and ghosts.
Exactly. And sorry.
No, sorry.
Going a bit deeper, do you think that ETs, they have a more understanding of life, death, everything that's where it come from? Obviously, there's the DNA creation of that. And all things that it's a mystery to us, and
they may well well understand. The Buxton case, which we touched on, we didn't go into the details of that, but it involved one of the experiences that this lady's had involved a landing of a craft, flying saucer in the middle of the road. Her and a friend as well, who completely shut down about the incident afterwards and everything. A lot of people tried to push it out of their mind and pretend like it never took place. But she had a meeting with some Nordic beings aboard that craft. She a lot of that came out through the regression. To be fair, she consciously she could just remember that they were very beautiful. That's what she said. Under regression, she remembered seeing these beings with blonde hair and these suits and that. And she remembers being with them and having it was quite a positive experience. She had a communication with them and that. And she didn't want to go. And when it came to an end, she asked one of the beings, "Will I ever see you again?" And the being says to her, "Yes, you will, but only when you die." That's what he said to her.
Wow.
So there,
you can
understanding.
You can read into that however you want. Are these beings somehow linked with with an afterlife? If an afterlife exists, are these beings somehow linked with that in some way?
Again, it leads you, like I say, it's interpretations. We all become one and made
Some contactees have reported seeing glowing orbs aboard the craft, which the beings have told them are people's souls. Now, again, you can that seems to suggest that they're in some way linked with what happens after we die, but who knows for sure? So we don't, there's a lot left to discover, and that's one of the reasons why it's endlessly fascinating to me, is because there's so many unanswered questions with it. Some people, may say, "Oh, it's a waste of your time and energy doing this. You're never going to get the answers you seek or whatever." But at least I'm not ignoring it and pretending like it's not there.
Exactly.
I'd rather search for truth in things that appear to be real, rather than just pretend that they're not there and just go about my life.
Exactly,
because I think it's very, very important, and I think also this subject will massively impact the future of humankind. In the years to come.
I agree with that.
It implicates so wide, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It'll just.
Who knows? Hundreds of years from now, where we get to with this. Maybe by then we'll have had open contact with these beings, and we'll be visiting their planets. This is really a big deal. It is a big deal. Just the very fact that we could be visited by beings from other other places, whether that be other planets, other dimensions, maybe both at once. It's just astronomical. And it's incredible, isn't it? Really, it's just such a big deal.
So much.
I
mean, Ben Hamlin Jones, and I agree with him that it's the UFO disclosure. That's the biggest cover up of them all. Is this? Not. I mean, people say it's 9/11, it's a massive cover up, but this is it. This is the big one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Really, and it's also above top secret. It's massively. It's massively controlled. They don't know exactly by who. Units within the military, and it started back in 1947 in America with Roswell, almost certainly, and it went out from there, and it's still under lock and key. Here we are, and they've got no reason to disclose. People are like, well, surely we're past all that fear and all that, and yes, to an extent. I'm not saying that some people couldn't still have that fear. I'm sure that some people will, will still be terrified if they were to come out and say this is real. They would have a lot to answer for. It's not. Let's be fair. It's not just lights in the sky, is it? They would have to say, okay, so if UFOs are real, does that mean that they're actually taking people against their will from their beds, from their cars, whenever they want to, and subjecting them to experiments, taking samples from them? And they would have to say, yes, sorry, everybody, that's real. You're going to do anything about that? Oh no, we can't. Sorry, it's out of our hands. People are not going to accept that. They would also have to say, oh, by the way, we've been lying to you for 8 years about the reality of this subject. It is actually real. And every single time we told you it wasn't real, was us making stuff up. How would anybody ever trust the government again? Why would they openly go and do that? Why would they openly put that untrust into the public eye? It would completely destroy the economy. It would have massive implications for energy and the technology and its use, because it's not like these objects are just up in the sky. There have been many crashes reported back to Roswell where they've got downed craft. They've probably got fully working craft, where they've landed on purpose or whatever, or been captured or whatever. So what are they doing with that technology? I find it very, very unlikely that they would just put it in a cardboard box and put it away somewhere. They're going to be trying to back engineer that, find out how it works. Who knows how far they've got with that? Now I know that some people have made controversial claims, talking about it being passed out into industry and that sort of thing, and it's not for me to give my views on whether that's true or not true, But it certainly seems plausible that they would have done that with some of the technology, sort of integrated it into, and who knows, they may have it with these black projects that they're working on behind the scenes, and maybe if we were to have a third world war or something, it would all come out, and we'd see all the technology that had been based on stuff that they got from this down craft. And it seems like a very big possibility. Certainly trillions of pounds and dollars and things have just gone missing on these black projects, so they've got to be spending it on something. One of the other fascinating things with disclosure, and one of the other reasons I think that it definitely wouldn't come about, is the connection with nuclear armaments. And these craft, and it's not widely known. I mean, people know certain incidents have happened, but what they're unaware of probably is that the extent that this has gone on. That there's pretty much no nuclear bases around the world that haven't had close interceptions of craft at some point or another. There are cases on record where they have switched off nukes. There are cases on record where they've switched on nukes. There are cases on record where they've brought missiles down out of orbit. They've actually been reported. Now, when you're talking about that, there's no way that they would want to openly admit that these beings have got control of our nuclear weapons. No way. There was a case in Russia where where they actually turned on nukes. There was a 30-second window or something where they thought the nuke was going to launch, would have started World War III or whatever, and they were terrified, and they didn't have a kill switch to stop it from happening. And luckily, after like 30 seconds of severe panic, it only went back off. I think probably the reason for that is probably a display of power. I wouldn't say for definite, but it seems too random. I don't believe that they are doing this as a message, although they are very concerned with our species and us preserving ourselves or maybe preserving the planet That much is certain, and that's come out through contact experiences. But I think this thing with the nukes, where they switch them off and things, I think is a display of power to our military. It seems most logical. They're kind of saying, look, we can do this if we want to. We can switch it off and on your nukes at will, so don't mess with us, you know. So let's get on with what we want to do, and everything will be fine, you know. Because it's very, very random, the things that they've done, you know. They've switched off random nukes, random banks of nukes and things at certain locations. There's no indication that those particular weapons were malfunctioning and were going to cause an accident. You know, you could say they're doing it to switch it off and it was about to break and blow up and they've stopped it from happening. But there was no sign of that. You know, it appears to be a random shutdown of random weapons. Yeah. Or is that their way of giving an environmental message, like, you know, don't use nukes, we're not happy with this? Maybe. But it would seem a very random way. If you use that logic, why don't they just shut down all the nukes? Just immediately shut down all nukes on the planet. Wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
Do you think, you know, the ETs? We've not talked on this. Talked about them creating our DNA and then creating us. Do you go along with that?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility.
Yes,
the ongoing observations from contact seem to point to like an ongoing project or program of some kind that's been going on for a long time, has no signs of coming to an end. Very much genetics based program. They often take DNA, skin, hair samples, eggs, etc. And I think they're definitely mucking around with our DNA. They could well have implemented DNA changes, you know, maybe over a long period of time. Seeing how it changes a species over maybe thousands of years.
Like their test species,
they may have put us in the first place. They may be responsible for us becoming what we are today. I can't say that as certain. It's just speculation. But they certainly appear interested in DNA and genetics. A lot of the time, contact will follow a family, usually like one line, one side of the family. You know, grandmother experienced contact, her daughter's daughter, etc. You know, and the other side of the family won't experience it, or maybe they'll indirectly experience it by being present when things have happened. So they're sometimes seen to take people just because they're in the vicinity. But it's not always like that. You know, you get different types of abductions take place. You get some where it's like that, where they appear to be studying a family line, sometimes over multiple generations. And maybe they're implementing small changes, or maybe they're just seeing how they change over years. But then you've got other cases where it appears to be completely random, where the person won't have had previous contact, and they'll just be out driving after dark, and all of a sudden they'll see a UFO, they'll have missing time, and they've had an abduction experience, and then there won't be anything else after that, almost like they've just seen them there, and they've been like, sure, why not? Pick them up for a look. It's really fascinating. They certainly appear to be mixing their DNA with ours. One of the more controversial aspects, one of their more controversial agendas, shall we say, appears to be this hybrid program where they seem to be taking their DNA and ours and mixing it up. It sounds fantastical, doesn't it? It sounds like the sort of stuff from a good old classic Hollywood sci-fi film, and that's why it's so hard for people to grasp as real, because it sounds so quirky and so hard to believe, But time and time again, you get cases on record where people report seeing cylinders aboard the craft with fetuses in, sometimes different stages of gestation, sometimes fully human. They look fully human. Sometimes they look partial human, partial alien. Usually the greys mixing, with humans, so they'll have characteristics of both alien and human. They do this, should we say, a ritual or something? Some sort of emotional bonding with the mother, so they'll bring the baby, or sometimes the father as well. I've dealt with some cases involving men and the hybrid program. Well, they'll bring them the baby and they'll allow them to hold it, and it doesn't look fully human, but they'll recognise it as their own son or daughter, even though it may have large black eyes or or just look different. They can tell it's not fully human, but they can sense that connection with it. Now, why they're doing that, we don't know. But they seem to allow them to hold it for a while, almost like to establish some sort of connection, and then they'll take it away. And when they take it away, they often don't tell them why they're taking it away. They just take it away, and it can be very, very upsetting, and it can lead to like lasting traumas and that sort of thing. And when you see this firsthand, when you talk to people this has happened to, and you can see how much it's affected them. You're dealing with something here that's very, very deep, and seems to be really going on. I know it sounds like amazingly far-fetched, and some people will just be like, this is just too much, you know. And for a lot of people, they won't touch the contact aspect of ufology because of this, because it's just so, you know, so wild, some of the things that appear to be going on. But for me, it's fascinating because I think it opens our eyes to what they're actually doing here. Yeah?
It does,
you know, once you get over the idea of them being real, it's easy enough to say UFOs are real. Anybody can make that statement. They can make it blasé, or they can make it with, you know, consideration. But if you're considering that statement, if you consider that UFOs are real, and I'm not talking about UFOs as in a misidentified plane here, by the way, I'm talking about, you know, solid structured advanced craft. Yeah. If they're solid structured advanced craft, surely they must have occupants. Yeah. So then you've got aliens, haven't you? You know, they've got occupants. You know, it's very unlikely there's occupants are human. Once you get over the whole military angle that we covered earlier on. So yeah, the aliens flying around these things, unknown intelligences, maybe from elsewhere, maybe not, you know, signs pointing towards them being from elsewhere. Then you have to consider, well, what they're doing here, they're not just randomly flying around the sky for years and years. That would make no sense whatsoever to anybody. Yeah, why would they do that? Yeah. So they've got to be up to something, haven't they? You know? And they appear to be up to it covertly. And then you get these cases on record, case after case after case, of people having deep communication with these beings, you know, and experiences where they get taken aboard their craft. Quite often it's very cryptic, and they're paralysed, and they do these things and then just put them back in their bed, and it's very nightmarish, very scary, can lead to lasting traumas. Other times it's a lot more open, and they'll be a lot more open with them and actually talk with them, or maybe even show them around their craft and take them around different rooms aboard their craft. But you get the same similarities appearing again and again through these cases, and a lot of it is not stuff that's widely publicised. You know, the environmental thing is an aspect of it, where they'll show them either images in their brain or on an actual screen, you know, aboard the craft. Images of what appears to be the planet burning or blowing up or whatever. You know, maybe future wars or us destroying ourselves with nuclear weapons, I don't know. And it's almost like they're giving a warning to the quantities, you know, don't do this, you're going to destroy yourself. Now, you had to say, what benefit would they do that for? Why are they showing these particular random individuals this? How would they make any difference in the grand scheme of things? It's not like they're taking, you know, the heads of...
it's crazy, isn't it? It's but I think, I don't know if you agree, but that would be in psychology operated on, so we have a very limited perception of the world, of things happening, so we're almost not going to question it largely. Humanity is not going to question, because the perception of everything is so tiny. You know, you have to really open your mind and have consciousness to accept it and then look into it, and then once you do,
I mean, this don't affect people's daily lives unless you've had your own experience. And even then, I've spoken with people who've had an incredible close encounter, and then have then just dismissed it and just gone about their life. You know, even though they've seen something up close themselves, you know, they'll still be sceptical even after that. You know, because they're not impacting people's lives on a day-by-day basis, unless you're a contactee who has repeat experiences. It's very easy to dismiss, you know, and very easy to ignore. You know, because people generally, all they care about is just, you know, paying the bills and you know, and just kind of entertainment to the masses and that sort of thing. You know, it's the dumbing down of humanity, is it not? You know?
And do you think this has been purposely done just so we have this very almost, Dave Hodrien calls it postage stamp, doesn't he, kind of?
To a level.
So we can't conceive anything beyond this perception that we have. So we just dismiss it.
It's everybody's. And I think it's human nature to dismiss things that they can't fully understand. You know, especially things that seem as quirky and as odd as some of the aspects of ufology. You know, it's a very hard thing to grasp that this is really happening, and it requires quite a jump. You know, but once you take that jump, that it's real. You know, it opens your mind to just incredible things, you know, going on with this. And I think the evidence speaks for itself. You know, I don't consider myself. I consider myself quite grounded with the subject. I don't.
I've got that with you actually.
I don't feel I'm easily led by it and things. I think my views on the subject have come about from evidence. They're evidence based. You know, they're evidence of these big cases on record and cases that I've now directly investigated for 10 years. And directly investigating it has only strengthened those views of mine. It hasn't been the other way around. It hasn't been like, once I start looking into the cases, I realise it was all a sham. And,
this is it.
It's, no way.
And you get that with a lot of researchers who go with evidence-based. You know, Andrew is one. You know.
Yeah.
From other areas, there it is. You know, it's not.
It's all there for people to grab. You know, and people want it handed to them on a plate.
Yeah.
Handed on a plate is disclosure, is it not? That's the government saying it's real. Stop worrying about it. It's definitely real. All your scientists say it doesn't exist. It does exist. Stop arguing. Right. That's handed on a plate. That hasn't happened yet. Yeah. No. But the evidence is there. The cases are all on record. And I know everybody has to be very wary because there's a lot of hoaxing. You know, there's entire YouTube channels dedicated to releasing hoax UFO videos. It's ridiculous. I get them all the time. People send me all the time. Oh, you've seen this, Dave? It's amazing. When you find out who's created it, you're like, I'm not going to name names. Anyway, so it's all out there. You know, there's hoaxes all the time. There's videos of supposedly showing live aliens being interviewed and things all the time. And some of the big cases that have gone on, even you can be misled to believe that they're real, and then later on find out that they're not. And that's all well and good, that's fine. If there's evidence pointing towards them not being real, you take that on board and you move on. You're like, okay, so that one's closed. Now explain the other 10,000 or 100,000 cases to me. So, to dismiss the whole subject, I think, it's just ridiculous. I think that people who do dismiss it, either one, haven't looked into it enough, they're making judgments through not checking the evidence, or they just seem to be dismissed, or they have checked the evidence, and for some reason they dismiss it after seeing all the evidence, or they look for alternatives, and then kind of base their. But I don't see how some of these cases could be fabricated, and when you've got lots of witnesses that have seen something and it's been recorded and it's on radar and that sort of, how can you argue against that?
Exactly. I think most people just don't look at things really particularly deeply and
they take a blasé approach to
it. Even like I said, even people in the truth movement, are fully in with the 9/11, and they're like, what, as soon as it comes into the UFOs, it's rubbish, not talking about little green man,
and it's because the media and that has indoctrinated into them from an early age that it's a joke and isn't really going on. It's done on purpose. And
for largely they've done a good job, haven't they?
Absolutely. That's why it's so easy for them to keep the cover up going. It's because hardly anybody really, on the whole, less than 1% of the population, are actually even remotely pushing for disclosure to come about. So why would they willingly do that? If over half the population went to them and forced them to reveal what they knew, I'm sure that they would. If it created massive riots and that sort of thing. But it never will, because most people don't care whether it's real or not. They really do not.
This is it again. It's the distractions into telly and everything.
But it doesn't matter whether they about that. The fact of the matter is, it is still real. At the end of the day.
And that's it. And that's what people don't make the connection. That is relevant. People think it isn't.
It doesn't impact my daily life, does it? Well, it does because I write reports and that sort of thing. So it does on that front. But the actual, the actual events themselves don't impact my life regularly. But I just find it deeply fascinating. And it's amazing to me how many people dismiss this subject or don't properly look into it, because I think when you realise it is real, it becomes endlessly fascinating. It's truly incredible.
It really is. I mean, I know people friends of mine who are looking at what we're doing, and when we interview people like yourself who are at UFO, they'll say, when are you going to do stuff on proper stuff? What's this proper stuff? I mean, what? This is it. This is it.
Our education system is if they covered it in education, then you'd believe it, because science or whatever tells you it's real because it's in the books, so therefore it's real. And your teachers told you back at school it's real, so it's real. It's all about that. It's all about what we're educated as children,
and who to believe or not.
Absolutely.
Authority.
Totally. I actually gave a class once. I actually gave a sociology class. So we're doing a part of their degree on paranormal investigation, and I gave a 3-hour talk to a class of students down in London a number of years ago. That was interesting. It was really interesting. Flew by like that. It was insane. I only got just halfway through what I had to share, but because it's such a vast subject, you can genuinely you can just go off.
You
can just talk for hours now. But it was interesting, you know. So they do occasionally touch on it, but it was more about the investigative side of things, how I go about investigating cases and that, rather than actually whether it was real or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I find in mainstream and in education, they want to more look at why people believe in this rather than the evidence behind it. I mean, you know, they look into that kind of stuff rather than actual evidence. They're not interested in that.
No, just the methods.
Yeah. As if there's something wrong with people who look into it, you know. Trying to suss them out psychologically, you know.
Absolutely.
What it actually is.
But that comes from the other side where you're saying that it's psychological. You know, that the reason they believe in it. Yeah. But the facts of the cases are the facts of the cases, and you can't mess with that.
Exactly. Facts are facts, and that's evidence is evidence, and and that's however, you know, if you want to not look at it or dismiss it, it's still there. It's still facts is facts. It's still going to be there.
Definitely. And I'll continue to do this. You know, there's no stopping that. You know, I'll continue releasing reports. You know, to what gain? I don't know. I feel in some ways that I'm helping towards the big picture, the big discussion.
We need people like you. You know, we need people like to continue because there's not, to be honest, there's not
extremely
many.
lacking.
Yeah,
especially in the UK.
Yeah. It's recording again.
Right. Okay.
No, we're okay.
We're okay.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Weird. It was when I mentioned the Men in Black.
Yeah, that's it.
They're watching us somewhere.
Yeah. One of the biggest cases I investigated, probably one of the more impressive ones really, was a formation of UFOs that was seen down the length of the UK. Now, this incident happened in August 1974, and I'm sure that there's other researchers out there that will probably have investigated this same thing.
Okay,
right? Now, I first became aware of it with a case from Castle Vale, North Birmingham. I think it was 2010. The gentleman first came to me, and what they said they'd seen was they'd just been waiting for a way home on a bus, and they're just at the bus stop waiting for the bus to turn up, and they saw a passenger jet fly over because it's quite near to Birmingham International Airport. So watch this passenger come over, and following the jet are these two blue spheres, these small blue spheres, and they seem to be following along behind the jet, and they're kind of looking at them a while, and then all of a sudden one of them goes that way and the other one goes that way and shoot off. And they were like, wow, what's going on with this? About a minute later, they see a V-shaped formation of either 5 or 7 flattened oval disc-shaped objects. They said they were kind of pearlescent, kind of like sort of off-white sort of colour to them. They weren't kind of silver, they were kind of sort of light yellow sort of colour and glowing on their undersides, possibly off the street lights, maybe reflecting off them. That's
it could be.
And they basically came in and went over, and they were pretty sure that there weren't a formation of jets. It was like a V shape of these things. So that went on the website, and a few months later, I got a message off somebody else early. So I'd say late spring 2010. And it was a gentleman who also had witnessed them, but he'd witnessed them here, where we are right now.
Right here, whereabouts?
This is Solihull, so we're in a place called Camden Green. And this is where he had his sighting. He was only 11 years old at the time. And there was him and about a load of other kids, and they're all out here playing football.
About this area where he's standing now, there was it?
Yeah, they're out here playing football. And it was a nice sunny early evening, because of the time of year. It was in August. It was still late. So it's still light in the sky, so the sun hadn't fully set. There were people outside of their front doors as well, looking around, parents and stuff, watching out for the kids and things. So there was quite a lot of witnesses to this. Now, he'd read the report that I put out on the BUFOG website, and he got in touch and he said, I've seen them too, but I saw them in Solihull, not Castle Vale. So he brought me out here to go over what he'd seen, and essentially they'd just been out here playing football, and the objects came in from over there, up in the sky.
Wow.
And they collared them. He didn't see
just over that where you pointed there, right over there. Yeah.
And he didn't see the blue orbs. All he saw, he didn't see these blue orbs that the other guy had reported. All he saw was the V shape. He said there were 7 of these objects, these disc-shaped glowing objects here. And they came in like this, and they're standing there just watching them. And I assume that people in their doorways must have also seen them. Yeah, because all the kids just stopped and they're all just looking at these things. And they came in. They were quite high altitude. Yeah. But they could definitely see them, and they knew that they weren't planes. So they came in and they curved around, and they arced, and then started going off that direction behind the houses over there. Yeah. While they were still in sight, just kind of above the house in the area sky over there. He said all of a sudden the objects come to a halt in the air. So they're all 5 of them in a row, just stood still in the air. Then the middle one starts doing this wobbling thing, I mentioned earlier on, the case with the weird mirage effect. He said the middle one started doing this wobbling motion, and then all of a sudden, bang, up it goes.
So when they're hovering over there, the middle one was...
So they all stood still a minute, and then all of a sudden the centre one just shoots up vertically. A second later, the other 4 follow it, almost like it's taking the lead and the rest are going. And they all shoot completely out of sight,
Wow.
I mean, absolutely incredible.
And all these witnesses testified the same thing. They saw everything.
Well, he's with the Solihull case.
Oh, right,
he's the only one I'm able to talk to.
Okay.
I did actually put out leaflets through these doors around here to see if anybody else had reported, remembered seeing it. But of course, this was back in 1974.
Yeah.
So a lot of them different homeowners now and that sort of thing. And I didn't get anybody come back off that, but it was worth a try. We have had since then. We've had two further witnesses have come forward. There was another Castle Vale sighting. That was actually quite recent, a few months ago. A lady got in touch to say that she'd also seen the blue orbs. She hadn't seen the V-shaped formation, but she'd seen the blue orbs, and she'd seen them come down out of the sky. And she said they came down to about 50 foot above them, and then just suddenly shot away like this. She's got no reason to make that up at all. She gave me some details and everything. People will say, there's no. You've only got the testimony to go on. That is often the case with these things. It requires a level of trust.
Of course,
The other case, this is interesting. A couple of years later, after the case report went out, I got a case coming from Liverpool. Now, this gentleman said that this incident happened in August 1973, not 74.
Oh, right.
But it's very likely that when you're talking about something that's happened so many years ago, that you might get the year wrong.
Yeah.
Now, what he remembers seeing is he said it was like the 5 side of a dice, so it was like a square with a 5th one in the middle, 5 objects flying along in formation, and they came down and basically hovered motionless above them. And you're probably thinking, well, it doesn't sound like a V formation, But he said the middle one, then apparently, and this without reading the report or anything, it's a completely separate report, without the middle one made this manoeuvre and moved ahead of the other 4, which then looked a lot more like a kind of V shape, And then he said they hovered there like that, and then all of a sudden up they go,
same as
away.
before,
Now I got in touch with him and I said, I think you might be referring to this case, and I pointed him in direction, and he said that's a distinct possibility. Once he showed the report, he said, okay, I could have the years wrong, and it sounds very similar to what I described.
Yeah, because of the similarities, it would.
Now, apparently they mapped these things from up north right down to Devon, and they performed an S-shaped manoeuvre across the country. I was informed of that by the guy from Castle Vale, the original witness who got in touch. He said he'd done a bit of digging and found that there'd been other sightings. So this was this is a big event.
So it's just this was part of it. What happened here? It was part of that whole event.
Totally.
Incredible.
So it seemed that they were kind of zipping up into the sky and then maybe coming down elsewhere, flying along a bit. Up they go. We don't. We can only speculate as to what those objects were doing, but they certainly possessed things. That meant they weren't mundane and definitely weren't jets. I mean that alone, is very, very impressive. The vertical manoeuvre these things that happen, and it kind of shows how these incidents can occur anywhere, at any time. You genuinely never know when you're going to see a UFO. You may go your whole life and never see anything. You might step outside your front door tomorrow and there's one right there in front of you.
I mean, many people may have been in the vicinity of UFO and not seen it, not looked up.
Absolutely,
even. So there's all these things would have occurred.
Yeah, because everybody's got their eyes on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
totally. Just thought I'd bring you down here to have a direct look at the location.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Dave.
No worries. I will say that if anybody wants to check out the website with all the cases, including the ones I've covered in this talk, They're all on the BUFOG website, which is www.bufog.com, BUFOG.com.
We'll put the links on.
We've also got a Facebook page, Facebook organisation page, which is Facebook/Birmingham UFO Group. That's just on that. I just put upcoming events and meetings, that sort of thing. And then we've got our community page, which is called BUFOG Truth Seekers. So that's a private group, so anybody can add themselves to that. So if they're watching the video and they want to add themselves to that, it's open to everybody, not just official group members. So we talk all aspects of the subject on there, post videos and that sort of thing. Okay. So yeah, anybody wants to get involved, and anybody's welcome to come down on meetings anytime. They don't have to be a member. So if you check on the website and they see there's a talk coming up that they want to come and see. Make the travel, then they're more than welcome. So
down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Keep an eye on what's going on.
Definitely.
I tend to give a lecture myself about once a year. Put together a lecture. I've given lots of different talks in different places over the years.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to go to that. We'll put all the links on, so we'll get everything out and get the info on. And
we will.
Yeah, but it's been great. We've been against the elements of technology here, but
I get that with my group from time to time. We get projectors breaking and that sort of thing. It does happen.
But it's been absolutely fascinating, hasn't it? Absolutely fascinating.
The brilliant. It's really, really good.
We'd love to do another one at some point.
Happy to talk about the subject whenever. Anybody.
Because there's so much in there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
In your home.
No problem at all. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. No problem.